Today's LifeWave product training class is on how to combine patches, and I do apologize that this class was supposed to be Thursday. I am still recovering from my latest interesting upper respiratory infection, which I have to be very grateful that I have not been sick for so many years. I really didn't know what it was like. But given my recent trip out to see a dying relative and all that's, flying, stress, whatever electromagnetic stuff that was going on, I think my body needed some rest. So, well, I guess this is the way I get it. So if I do have to mute myself to cough or take a drink, just keep in mind if there is a pause, that's probably why. So I feel grateful that you're here with me today and you're willing to play along. Would love to have your questions. By the way, this is one of the most important webinars of the series, of the LifeWave product training series, how to combine patches. We have a lot of questions on how do you do that? What patches do you start first? How quickly do you incorporate them? And these are some of the questions that don't really get answered very well by the brochures. You normally would have to talk to your upline or your customer service person to help you out with this. So we're going to try to answer some of these questions by giving you some basic principles today, so that you don't have to memorize a lot of protocols. Now, we'll be giving you a couple of my favorite advanced protocols today, just two. Because again, I don't want you thinking that you have to memorize all this stuff. But instead, we're going to look at basic principles, things that when you review this class, maybe you're taking notes right now, if you go back to those basic principles, you're not going to get in trouble. You're not going to get too much detox. You're not, going to overwhelm your client or, your customer with at least that's my preference, with too many patches all at once. So there is a chat box on the right-hand side. So if you'd like to, if you're just joining us and you want to say hi, I would love to see who's on the call tonight. That's live with me, and also where you're from. Would love to have you say hi in the chat. Also, there's a poll that I'm going to be putting up. Basically, what is your favorite patching combination, assuming that you have already done some combining before? Now, of course, there's only 5 options or 6 options available on this poll, so I couldn't put them all in there, but I put some of the general ones. And so I'm going to go ahead and add that poll that you can definitely do if you would like. And then we'll see a little later what people have answered. Okay, so let's get started. Alrighty, so a couple of things before we begin. Like I said, love your questions, but we want to make sure that you don't have ask any questions with disease names in them. So if somebody has, say, multiple sclerosis, you need to ask the question based on what symptoms they're having. So if they're having pain, you put pain. If they're having energy problems or sleep problems, you can put that. If you put, the symptoms of multiple sclerosis, that is not good enough. I'm sorry, I won't be able to answer that question. So you're going to have to be very specific about which symptom that you would like treated with the patches, if at all possible. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Dr. Karen Kan. I'm a holistic physician acupuncturist and the best-selling author of Guide to Healing Chronic Pain, A Holistic Approach. And you'll see on the chat that there is a website that you can go to, my website, KarenKan.com. In case you don't have a copy of my book, you can get the first 6 chapters absolutely free as a download. And with that actually comes a few other classes for free as well. You get on my mailing list, and I reward you by giving you some free access to some of my most popular classes called Fast Track Your Healing series. And one of the most popular classes is the muscle testing class, which I'll be mentioning a little later. So I specialize in energy medicine, more even spiritual medicine these days. I've been featured on PBS TV, featured on Biography, have been a LifeWave trainer for the last, 5 years, something like that. And I've been featured in several LifeWave videos and been with LifeWave, oh gosh, I think it's 8 years now. I keep forgetting to change that slide. Hey guys, thanks for saying hi in the chat. All right, we kind of went through this as far as asking questions. Make sure they are symptom related, not disease name related. Otherwise, I will not be able to answer those. So today's objectives for the class is to learn to combine patches safely and effectively beyond what's in the LifeWave product brochures. Sorry, that should say brochures, not handbook. And learn one of the ways you can verify whether something's optimal for someone or not. How to decide which patches to start first. If you want to start a whole bunch, how do you decide? Which one do you start first? What's the safest to do? You'll learn how to add on patches, or at least my preferences on how I add patches on in combination, and how long to wait before introducing a new patch. And also some troubleshooting tips if someone isn't responding to patching. And I have 2 advanced energy enhancer protocols that do not appear in the handbook or the brochures that I found very helpful. One's a little trickier to get to than the other, but have kind of general appeal for people with energy issues. So I thought I would share that with you today. Part of this talk is taken from the advanced training course for practitioners that we used to do, the corporate used to do for our practitioners only. So this is a little bit simpler version of that course. And it's also shorter. So even if you're not a practitioner, this should make sense to you. So there's only a small part of it that was part of that course, but the general principles are the same. So one of the important things to note is that 80 and sometimes up to 90% of people do respond to the protocols and the placements in the brochures. So you don't have to go fancy in order for people to get results. So sometimes people get way too fancy thinking that they have to learn all these complex protocols or use the advanced protocols in the product training manual, that $20 manual you can get in your back office, that blue manual. They think they have to use that, to get people better, and you really don't. I think it's always good to always start with the basics in the brochure. And then, of course, you have your upline or, people that are on your team, or if you're a customer, you have the person you bought them from that has more experience, and if they don't, they can always bring you to someone with more experience to help you patch. Okay. So very important tip. So we're going to go through several. So this is one of the main ones. How to combine patches. Okay, in someone who's never had patches, so that's what I call a patch naive person. In other words, they've never experienced patching. You want to go from simple to complex. So don't start with, patching them with 4 different patches. I mean, I do know that some of the other trainers do that. Dr. Dennis being one of them, and he does have some amazing, wonderful protocols. But I generally like to start with simple. So maybe some of you can type in the chat and tell me why you think that I would suggest going from simple to complex rather than start off with complicated protocols. Okay, so there's some good reasons for that. So the other principle, which might be new to many people, is that we've got patches that are white and tan. We've got energy. We've got IceWave. But we've also got single patches, right? We got YH, Silent Nights, SB6 Complete. If you're trying to combine patches in a way that isn't in the book or brochure, one of the ways you can do it very safely is to create energetic triangles in the body, or sometimes rectangles. Sometimes you get 2 triangles out of a rectangle. So kind of show you what I mean in a minute. When you place the patches in a triangular formation on the body, you get an enhanced energetic flow in the body. So Dr. Dennis and I are very, very into these energetic triangles. So what do I mean by that? Okay, so here you got two triangles, one with the point up, one with the point down. For example, if you've got patches on each arm or on each leg, that would make 2 points of the triangle, right? And if you have one in the center line, such as a YH patch or one of the other single patches, then you have a perfect triangle. So if you do it with the legs, do it with the arms, you have a triangle. And that is one of the simplest ways to combine patches when you have a couple that you want to combine and you're not really sure where you want to put them because it isn't in the product training manual or it's not in the brochure, and you want to make sure that it's safe for you to do it. So this is one way where you can make it safe. Okay, so here's an example, which unfortunately my guy on the slide didn't quite, the patch in the middle of his belly unfortunately moved when the slide got widened, so apologize about that, but it's still a triangle. So here we've got actually two triangles. Can you see that? Now, according to Chinese medicine, when you take a look at the body, the hands are actually above the head in Chinese medicine, meaning that the energy is that the hands have a higher energy. And so energetically, they're above the head. And so if you can imagine this man with the hands above the head, you'll see that when we have one of the YH patches in the middle, that we make two triangles here. Now, you don't have to make two triangles, but it's just an example of how you could combine several patches safely. Now, the original protocol in your product training manual, that $20 manual in your back office, does not have a YH in the middle, but I put one in the middle, although right now it doesn't look like it's in the middle, but it doesn't have to be in the middle, really. Like, if you think about it, the one in the midline, let's imagine that's the, let's say, okay, upper body. You got a white on the right, a tan on the left. We'll say that is our energy patches, okay? That's one of the points in the brochure. So we got energy patches on now. And on the lower leg, we've got an SP6 on the left. Why on the left? Because that's a negatively charged patch. And then the glutathione, which is a positively charged patch, is on the right. And we're using matching points here. Makes things simple. So we have glutathione on stomach 36, SP6 complete on stomach 36 on the left. And then we've got a YH patch. I'm going to imagine that to be an Eon. It could be anything, really. But we're going to say it's an Eon. And right now, it's not quite on the belly button, which is where I wanted it to be, but it actually is in an important area regardless. It happens to be over the right lower quadrant of the belly, which often that part of the intestines called the ileocecal valve. So that's the valve between the small intestine and the large intestine. That valve is often dysfunctional in many people. They can have constipation or diarrhea or both. That valve is too closed or too open, can't decide what it wants to do. So we found anecdotally that with people with this valve problem, that actually the Eon really helps to put right there on the right lower side. A lot of people sometimes have pain there as well. So I don't know how many of you have heard of the ileocecal valve. If you have, yeah, let me know in the chat. Just curious. So you can actually use it, and even though it's not a perfect equilateral triangle, it's still a triangle. You've got something midline or close to midline, a YH, and then you've got the white and tan on the upper, and then the negative and positively charged patch on the bottom. So two triangles. So if you have any questions about that, you can put that in the chat. It's a very important concept, making these energetic triangles balances the energy in the body. So number one was going from simple to complex in someone who's never had patches. Now, I didn't get any answers for why you think that is important. So let me give you some answers here. So if you patched somebody who's never had patches with 3 or 4 different patches all at once, what do you risk having or doing to that person? Number one, each patch, no matter what it is, has the ability to put the body into a healing mode, or sometimes in the old way of describing it, we call it a healing crisis or detox reaction. We talked about detox reactions in the first class. So if one type of patch can cause a detox reaction, what do you think 4 patches might do to somebody who's never really detoxed before or has a lot of toxins? They might not be too happy with you. They might get a headache, might be nauseous, might be dizzy. Now, of course, if you've tried the simple things and it doesn't work, then yeah, definitely I do use more than one kind of patch. But generally, we don't want to put somebody in detox too much. So that's one of the reasons why you don't want to go too complex. What's the other reason? Well, the other reason is if you are teaching someone how to use patches for the first time, simple is better. If you give somebody too many instructions, then they're going to be overwhelmed, especially if it's not in the brochure, and they're not going to remember how to do it. And they're going to say, you know what? I can't do this. It's too complicated. It's too hard. And if you happen to be marketing to a new potential distributor, they're going to think the same thing. Oh my gosh, how am I going to learn this stuff? This is so hard. One of the reasons that Lifeway Corporate took away the names of the acupuncture points in the brochure and instead just named them placement 1, placement 2, placement 3, placement 4, etc., is so they can dumb it down so they don't intimidate people with acupuncture point names. That was felt by some of the leaders to be too intimidating, and people think they had to be acupuncturists to use them. We don't want people to think that. We want them to think that it's fairly simple. So that's the other reason I like to start simple and then move on to complex if necessary. So you don't overwhelm your client or your customer or your new distributor. So that was basic guideline number 1, simple to complex. Number 2, patch in triangles if you can. It's very balanced, very safe. Number 3 now is muscle test if you're using some, off the wall protocol that isn't in the book. You can always use muscle testing to see if that's good for someone or not. Now, it's a little trickier to muscle test yourself, which is one of the reasons why I have my website here, so you can get a copy of the book, but also there's a class on muscle testing where we go through in detail how you would learn to muscle test yourself. It takes a lot of practice. I do it all the time, of course. I do it in my office, do it for myself. I even act as proxy for other people using my body to test theirs, which is very interesting, but very quick. And because I've practiced thousands and thousands of hours how to do self-muscle testing, so it's very accurate when I test other people. So in the muscle testing, you would put the patches on, or before you put the patches on, you would confirm that the person's testable. So you would confirm that when they said their name, their muscle test would be strong. When they said a false name, their muscle test would be weak. Then they're testable. So then you can further test them. So you can put the patches temporarily on their body in the configuration you want and then muscle test them. If they test strong, the body's saying, yeah, I like that. I like that combination. But if the body goes weak, then there's something wrong. Then the body's like, well, not my favorite. Maybe you should change something, So this takes a little practice to do. The other way you can do it is I literally won't even put the patches on the body necessarily. I'll just say it or write it down on a piece of paper. Now, of course, I know all the acupuncture points, so I might write down where I want to put them on a piece of paper, and then I'll just put that piece of paper against that person's chest and muscle test them and ask, is this combination of patches for so-and-so's highest and greatest good? And if they muscle test strong, then that would be a yes. If they muscle test weak, that would be a no. And we'd start from scratch and try something else. So that's kind of like the Coles Notes version, the quickie version of how you use muscle testing when doing things or combining patches outside of what's in the brochure or what's in the handbook. So this is, there's a little picture here I forgot to put up. That's an example of what muscle testing would look like if you were testing someone else. Now, if you've done those 4 things and you're still not getting the results that you think you should be getting, for example, if someone's using IceWave, you've done the protocols like in the book or in the brochure, and they're hydrated, and you're not really getting at least 50% decrease in pain, then it's possible they're not brain balanced. And that's a term that I use because I created the brain balancing protocol with the EON patch. And I found that if you use the EON patch on specific points of the head, just one, just pick one of the points, that it helps to balance the nervous system much, much faster, helps to synchronize the brain hemispheres. And in doing so, it puts the body into healing mode much quicker than just using the EON anywhere else on the body. And when that happens, the other patches work better. So we can get someone who is not responding to the IceWave as well as we would like. Then I might put one EON patch temporarily on the back of their, behind their ear on triple burner 17. And all of a sudden, after a few seconds, their pain will start melting away. Why? Because we've balanced the brain and they're finally responding to the IceWave patch. When your brain isn't balanced, it's sort of like having a hiccup in your nervous system, or having like a circuit that is not really all connected, so the messaging isn't getting through. But when you balance the brain, then all of a sudden, wow, the messages are getting through and everything's working better. Not just other patches, but anything else is working better. If they're eating well, that's better. If they're taking homeopathy, that's better. If they're doing acupuncture, that works better. It's amazing. So I'm obviously a big fan of my own brain balancing protocol, but Dr. Dennis uses this almost exclusively for the first 2 weeks for some of his new customers, just as a rule, to get them brain balanced before he starts on them on any other protocol. He often uses this first because he finds everything works better afterwards, including his other energy treatments. So here are some of the points that you can use. Now, don't use all of them at the same time. Choose one and alternate them. Now, of course, if you're just trying to see whether IceWave works or not, you can just pick the most convenient one to do the brain balancing when you're using another patch to see if it'll work like IceWave. So in that case, I like to either put it on the top of the head, if it's convenient, or on the, behind the right ear is probably the easiest thing to do. Sometimes the third eye, although that can be kind of confusing or intimidating, rather. Somebody thinks they have to walk around the shopping mall with a patch in front of their forehead. So I often will put it just behind the ear. Most people will respond to that one. Be aware that more patches may mean faster detoxifications. We mentioned that a little bit before. So that's okay as long as you're aware that may happen. You may want to warn the person, make sure they drink more water. So what about the question of how do you know what to treat first. You got lots of different patches, and how do you know? You know, people have their preferences. The most important thing, I feel, is that you listen. You know, listen to your customer, or yourself in this case. Listen to your customer. What are they saying is the most important problem? Like, say they have 5 problems. They can't sleep, they're in pain, they have no energy, they want to get rid of wrinkles. Okay. So, boy, that's a lot of stuff. You can use a lot of different patches. How I would approach is, and I'd say to them, well, okay, we definitely have products for those symptoms. So let me ask you this. If you were to put them in order of most important to least important, what would the order be? Which symptom would you like worked on first? So you let them guide you on which patches to start, because whatever symptom they want gone first, that should be your goal. Now, so many times in practice, I've made mistakes where I have my own agenda. You know, I'll see someone, they have chronic fatigue, they've got all these problems, and they're eating horribly, and, you know, they're not sleeping, they're in pain, and oh my gosh, they're just a mess. And then when I ask them, what issues do they want dealt with first? The first thing they say is, I want weight loss. And I'm thinking, really? Really? You got all these other major issues going and you want weight loss first? So sometimes I have to educate them that, well, you know what, we got to get your brain balanced before you're going to lose weight. And, you know, your body's in stress mode. So we do have to address that, because stress causes weight gain. And then you may have some toxins, which also cause weight to stay on. So these are some of the things we got to work on. And if your energy system's really low, your body's going to be in emergency mode and won't release the weight either. So, you know, I have to do some education sometimes, because I may not be able to get rid of that weight very quickly if I don't talk, at least teach them some of the other things to do for their other issues. But generally speaking, with LifeWave, you want to treat the most important them first. Okay, so let's go to the next slide here. Right, so here's an example. List symptoms from the most to the least important, and let that be your guide to which patches you're going to use. So in this case, fatigue, what are you going to use? Energy enhancer, right? Stress, what are you going to use? Eon, right? YAG-on. Pain, a no-brainer, right? Ice Wave. And for sleep problems, yeah, that would be Silent Nights. So in this case, if the person says that's the order, you would probably use Energy Enhancer first, then Eon, then Ice Wave, then Silent Nights. Now, if someone doesn't necessarily have symptoms, but they want to feel good, they're interested in anti-aging maybe, or they just want to stay healthy. There's lots of reasons that people are interested in the products. Maybe they don't have a preference because they think, well, what do you think? You know, these are all really good for your health and wellness. So what do you think I should start first? If that's the case, then I always like to start with the YAG-eon first. One of the reasons is because I like doing that brain balancing protocol, get them in healing mode, because I know the other patches will work better after that. And stress is so common. Maybe you can tell me what kinds of things in our environment are causing the stress response in our body. Let's see, the folks on the call are familiar with some of the things we talked about in some of the other webinars I do, if you've been on any of those, about what the daily stressors are for people that they go through, that some of them don't even know that they're going through. It's causing their brain balance to get messed up. So I'm going to pause here for a sec just to look at our poll here. Let's see, we've got, okay, so we got a split here. 50% of folks like using the YH Plus Energy Enhancer patches. 25% really like the YH Plus Ice Wave. And then the other 25%, I put an option for all of the above. I think that probably, I didn't vote yet, so that's probably going to be my vote too. Okay, thanks for doing the poll. Okay, so let's see. Let's go to, if you're using YH. So, hang on just a second. Let me just put another lozenge on in my system. And I start talking too much, I start coughing. Sorry about that. Okay, we have a question here. Let's see. What if it does not work? Minimal patches. Okay, so whatever you are patching doesn't work, I usually add a brain balancing patch next. So most of the time, when they don't work, we're talking about a hydration issue. But if they're well hydrated, or they think they are anyway, the second most common thing is they're not brain balanced. So I'll often add the Eon patch to whatever they're doing and see what happens. And of course, you can always layer on complexity if what you're doing doesn't work. For example, for Ice Wave in some of the advanced patching classes we've done with corporate, with the practitioners, if you've done Ice Wave, doesn't work, and you've hydrated the person, I add an Eon patch behind their right ear. If that doesn't work, which is rare, but if it doesn't work, sometimes we'll just add a glutathione in their right hand. If their pain is due to toxins, when we put the glutathione in the right hand, that starts to detoxify them very quickly. Sometimes enough that the messaging goes through and they get out of pain. Occasionally, we might add carnosine patch to the Ice Wave and Eon if they have some sort of burning type pain, because Dr. Quila has found that to be very helpful in burning type pains. And sometimes they'll stack, the glutathione or the Eon or the carnosine onto one of the Ice Wave patches and get extra pain relief. So there's lots of little advanced protocols that we've taught in the practitioner training course. And we'll probably do a lay person's version of that class in the future if you're interested. So let me know if some of you are interested in doing an advanced pain relief patching class. So say they, if you have used energy enhancer patches or sleep patches or pain patches, whatever their main symptom is, and they want to start the YH patches, I generally start them with Eon first. You don't have to, but the Eon, I just think it's so wonderful to have decreased inflammation and stress, that people will get a lot out of it quickly. So I would add that in first. The glutathione, I would often add second, but it depends. I often muscle test people in my office, so I do whatever their muscle test tells me. So if it's glutathione third and carnosine second, then I do carnosine first before glutathione. If you remember from the YH class, the glutathione doesn't last very long in your body, which is why if you want to keep your glutathione levels up, you'll want to work up to 5 to 7 days a week. Whereas for the carnosine patches, unless you're really trying to reverse wrinkles, you're an elite athlete, you're recovering from a pretty intense, medical issue, the carnosine lasts in your body for days. So you may not need more than 2 to 3 times a week. So sometimes I'll do that last, but it depends. For example, in the last class on Silent Nights, we talked about how you can amplify the sleep effect of Silent Nights by using a carnosine. So if they're having sleep problems and the Silent Nights is helping, but not as much as you'd like, you can add Aeon in the morning, then Silent Nights with carnosine at night. In that case, we wouldn't use glutathione next because their main issue is sleep. So hopefully that makes sense. If you've been on the other classes, that should make sense to you. Why would we do that? Carnosine and Silent Nights is an advanced protocol that we talked about last class. So, gosh, I think I numbered these in a weird way, but anyway, one of the other principles of combining patches. So we got a bunch here, right? We've got, if you recall, start simple, then to complex if needed. Combine patches if you're not using the brochure or the handbook, and those are time-tested protocols. Then if you use your own, then patch in triangles. Balance the energies of the body. If you have a lot of patches, it might cause detox, so just be aware of that. Treat the symptom first, whichever one is their most important one, and then go on to the other symptoms. If you're getting less than stellar results, add an Aeon on the brain in my brain balancing protocol. By the way, I don't know whether you have that, but in case you don't, you can get a free download at one of my websites, patchtrainingteam.com. So that way you can get the brain balancing protocol for free, and there's some video training there as well. So the next basic guideline of combining patches is I like introducing new patches no sooner than every 2 or 3 days. I mean, the exception is IceWave. So sometimes with IceWave, I might add Aeon or glutathione or carnosine right away if I'm not getting adequate results for pain relief, because I expect IceWave to work quickly, right? And so do you. However, with the YH, it doesn't always work right away. I mean, you can't get rid of wrinkles in 24 hours. So it's gonna take some time. So in that case, I tell the person, well, okay, we want to eventually go on all these, 3 or 4 patches according to your symptoms, but let's start with the first one, whatever your symptom is most important. Let's have you do that for 3 days. Get back to me and see how you're doing. If you're doing well, you're getting results, or you feel like you're tolerating the patches well, then we can go ahead and add the next one. And then I'll have them add the next one for 2 to 3 days, sometimes a week, depending on how sensitive they are. And if they're doing well with that, then we might add the next one. Now, I often will wait sometimes up to 2 or 3 weeks before adding the next patch, because I'm muscle testing them all the time, at least my patients anyway. When is the next time that's optimal for them to add yet another patch so they don't get detoxy too much or don't get too overwhelmed? So every 2 to 3 days is probably the minimum you'd want to wait as far as adding new patches to combine with the other patches they're already using. Again, you remember, you don't want to overwhelm people. So if you have any questions about these main patch combining guidelines, love to get your feedback in the chat. Go ahead and write that in the chat for those of you live on the call. And I'm going to kind of move over a little bit to giving you a little taste of some advanced patch placements. These are ones that I've used quite a bit in the office, on myself as well, that you may want to try, and you can actually use them in combination. So these are going to be energy enhancer. Well, actually, it doesn't have to be, but in the pictures they are energy enhancer advanced protocols. This one, I actually have a YouTube video on this where James is my guinea pig and we patch his back. It's kind of, I call it like, I think the superior energy point, something like that. So bladder 23. So if you take an imaginary line that extends from the bottom of your rib cage all the way to the middle of your back, and you go out from either side, maybe like an inch and a half, something like that. You'll get to the bladder 23 point. So using energy enhancers, we would put the white on the right, tan on the left. Now I used to look in the mirror to find this point, but now I'm so used to doing it, I can pretty much feel my way through putting the patches on. And yeah, maybe one might be a little higher than the other, or a little more out than the other. But if you're within 3 inches of the point and you've got the intention of putting it on bladder 23, your body will know that and you will stimulate that point. So don't worry about getting it right on. So that's one of the ways that you can find bladder 23. The other way is you can put your hands on your hips at the top of your hip bones, your iliac crest. If you draw an imaginary line to the center of your back, that's actually the process, spinous process of L4. And if you go 2 spine spaces above that, that is L2. And if you go 1.5 thumb widths or inches on either side, then you also will find bladder 23. And this is a wonderful set of points to combine with any of the other patches. You can use it with Aeon on the head, on the brain balance points. This is a wonderful superior energy point. It's a kind of like your energy storage place. So think of it like helping your batteries recharge. You can use kidney 3 as well on the inside ankle, but this one is a little bit more specific for charging your battery. And so this is one of my husband's favorite points. So we use this quite a bit. And in fact, when we only had energy enhancer patches, Dr. Dean Clark, the Olympic chiropractor that did all those wonderful thermographic photographs for us in LifeWave, he used to use these points on the back of the athletes and they would get wonderful results. The lower limbs were very energized and they would run faster, and he was just really impressed. He just didn't know the Chinese medicine point was bladder 23. He just instinctively used energy patches on their back, and these people did wonderful things in their athletics. So I thought that was pretty funny, learning the story. Okay, now remember, we can't do any questions with disease names. So you're gonna have to be more specific, Marcella. Okay, what symptoms do the persons have? You can't assume that I know what those symptoms are. Okay, I'm gonna go on to the next part here. Now here we're also drawing in the energy enhancer patches too. But, you know, with the bladder 23 point we just showed you, or with this one, you don't have to use energy enhancer patches. You could use any negatively charged patch on the left and any positively charged patch on the right. So do you remember the other negatively charged patch besides the tan patches? It's SP6 complete. So you could put SP6 complete on the left of either of these 2 advanced protocols. And on the right, you can put any positively charged patch. So you're going to create a circuit that way. So you can put the Aeon on the right, or the glutathione, or the cortisone, even silent nights if you want, on the right-hand side. The most common would probably be the energy enhancer patches, white on right, tan on left, or the SP6 on the left and maybe Aeon or glutathione on the right. That's Dr. Dennis's favorite combination for hormone balancing, is SP6 on the left, Aeon on the right. So this point, now if you're sitting down, maybe you can find this on yourself right now. So it's underneath the collarbone. It's kidney 27. So it's in the space underneath the collarbone, and kind of like before the first rib. It's kind of a tiny space. You might be a little tender there. A girlfriend of mine, she's actually a massage therapist who does lymphatic drainage, and I was having some major lymphatic drainage issues a couple of years ago, and she had done a whole 20 minutes of work on me, got it open. Then, unfortunately, she massaged my sore arm, and within 5 minutes, that lymphatic area blocked up right up again. And she was a little like miffed, like, gosh, it closed right back up, the lymphatic drainage. So she said, let me put some energy patches there just to see what would happen. And within 2 or 3 minutes, that whole lymphatic area opened right up. And she's like, wow. Because, she just did 20 minutes of work to get it opened up, and the patches did it in 2 minutes. So this has been one of my other favorite points to use to help the lymph flow. But also, Kidney 27 is very, very good for adrenals. So it's very good for people with exhaustion, people that have gone, are chronically fatigued all the time, maybe recovering from surgery or some major stress. So it's a really good point to work for these symptoms. Okay, so we've got a question regarding pain going from the back at about L2 to the hips, down the side of the leg to the side of the lower leg. Okay, so using the IceWave patches, we would probably start with where's the most important, the most painful part. So always use the protocols in the brochures first, unless you're very, very experienced and, intuitively, you want to try something different. But I've been shocked at how many times as a doctor, if I use just the brochure points, not the ones that I think the pain should be, they work better than what I thought. So I put an Eon on the back of the ear. Then I use the clock protocol. Put the tan over the back or wherever the pain is worse. Maybe it's their hip, maybe it's their leg. I had a client that with a pinched nerve pain going down the leg, and the pain was mostly in the leg. I knew the problem was in the spine, but his pain was in the leg, so I went with the protocol just to show him how to do it. I really didn't think it was going to work, but we put the tan right on his leg where it was the most painful, and what do you know? At the 9 o'clock position, boom, pain went down from 8 to 2. He could walk and wasn't stumbling all over the place. It was amazing. So you would use the clock protocol that we taught in class 1. And if that didn't work, then I would use the back pain protocol that's in the IceWave brochure, which is tan in the center of the back. So in this case would be about L2. And then the white would go down to the top of the left foot. He used to call that the sciatica protocol until they decided that sciatica was a disease. So they don't call it that anymore. Excuse me. So that is the 2 things I would use. I would use the clock protocol, or I would use the advanced back pain protocol that's in your IceWave brochure. If you go to patchtrainingteam.com to the blog and type in the search advanced back pain, you'll also see one of the fancy protocols that Dr. Dennis uses called the support mountain protocol, also called the triple triangle protocol. He's had some good effect with that. You could put, I'll just summarize it here, but there's a picture on the website. You could put a pair of IceWave on the bottom of the feet. Now, it doesn't matter white on right or tan on left, whichever works is what I say with IceWave. And then you put the carnosine over the L2 area, or where you think the problem's coming from, or where the pain is. Then you put a glutathione on GV14, the knob at the back of the neck. And then you put an Eon at the top of the head. So you got 3. Now, this is an advanced protocol, folks. So again, I don't like to use this right away. People can detox a lot. So you got Eon at the top, glutathione at the neck, carnosine in the low back, and IceWave bottom of the feet. And you're making how many triangles now? Think about it. Think about it. How many triangles are you making with those 3 Y-age and that set of IceWave? Put your answers in the chat. That's Dr. Dennis calls support mountain triangles. Support Mountain Advanced Back Pain Relief. We also call it the triple triangle, so that also gives you the answer. There's 3 triangles that we're making. Okay, so if someone's not responding to patches, we talked about some of this before, but I want to go over it again. The most common is they're not hydrated enough. Now, that being said, I have had folks that, are not they're not the typical wellness kind of person. These are folks. There was one guy I remember coming in, horrible knee pain, and was probably going to get surgery. I said, well, let me try this on you anyway. And I said, by the way, how many cups of coffee do you have per day? And he started laughing. I said, well, I'm asking you because I want to see if you're hydrated. And he says, well, probably about 24. I said, 24 cups of coffee? He says, yeah, I love my coffee. So I'm thinking, well, I don't know, this is going to work on this guy. So I did the protocol anyway. I gave him a big glass of water to drink beforehand. What do you know? The pain went away. I was amazed. But a lot of people that drink that much coffee are going to be pretty dehydrated. So you might be playing catch up there, but it's worth trying. So it's worth, giving them 16 ounces of water and seeing if they respond better. Now, we talked about people not being brain balanced, and that's why the patches or other things don't work for them. And mineral deficiencies are another biggie. So if you got somebody you're patching that is on a lot of medications, that's probably a good indication that they have significant mineral deficiencies. Now, one of the things we've done in the past, which temporarily works, is that you can put a few grains of Himalayan crystal salt on their tongue while you're doing the ice wave patching, or even sea salt if you don't have Himalayan crystal salt, which I prefer because it has more minerals. But if you got some unrefined sea salt, a couple of grains on the tongue, sometimes that'll just activate that mineral system enough that all of a sudden the ice wave works. And that did happen to one of the guys we were patching. He had like a hip replacement, and anyway, we couldn't get anywhere. We hydrated him. We did the clock protocol. That was before the Eon patch was invented. And so we just did a few grains of salt under his tongue or on his tongue, and boom, pain went from 8 out of 10 to a 2. It was amazing. Now, of course, if it's long-standing mineral issues and you're not a doctor, you may not be able to prescribe or suggest minerals. But, if they're on a lot of medication or you happen to be a healthcare provider, it might be helpful to, recommend some like a mineral supplement of some sort. Sometimes we have people that have all 3 reasons why they're not responding. But the minerals is very when people are on a lot of medications or they've been really ill for a really long time. So as a doctor, I'm allowed to prescribe these kinds of things, and I'll actually muscle test them for what brand of minerals they need and how much. So let's do a case study together. Okay, so the slide's a little wonky, so I'll read you what's the part that's covered up. So a member of your downline who has had great success with patches on herself has a new prospect on the phone, so they're doing a 3-way call with you. Her name's Alice, and during the 3-way call, Alice, who's recently been diagnosed with lupus, asks you the question, what patches should I use for my lupus? Okay, so what is your answer? What do you say to Alice to answer that question of what patches should she use for her lupus? So go ahead and put that in the chat and tell me what you would say to Alice first before anything else. So if you want to write your answers in the chat, you can move on. Okay. Well, the first thing is that, the LifeWave patches are not designed to cure or treat any disease like lupus, but they can be helpful for the symptoms. So what you should ask her is a question back. What are the symptoms you're currently having? And then if what we have might be supportive of the symptoms that you have. So you really want to get back into symptoms. And I can't tell you how many times we've done this training with people, even practitioners that have been in the LifeWave business for years, and I still get questions in my Facebook or email of how do you treat herniated disc, or how do you treat ankylosing spondylitis, or how do you treat eczema? Those are disease names, folks. Can't ask those questions. You get the company in trouble. So you gotta be able to convert it to symptoms. So people are going to ask you these questions, and you're going to have to learn how to respond appropriately. You do not say the LifeWave patches can treat anything. Okay, I can't emphasize this enough. So let's move on. So Alice is about 35 years old. She's tired all the time. She was worried about her organs being damaged by lupus. She has pain in her muscles and joints, and sometimes in different places. And her doctor told her she was a mild case, and her doctor had no particular preference whether she used these acupuncture patches or not. He said they were fine for her. So, assuming her doctor's fine with them, what patches would you recommend given her symptoms? How will you decide on which ones to start first? And how many different ones would you start with? And remember, you're only answering questions that deal with symptoms, not disease names. So go ahead and write in the chat on what patches might be helpful in this case, given her symptoms. By the way, while you're thinking about those things and write them in the chat, just want to remind you that the recording of this will be available for 7 days for free. You'll get an email with a specific link, the replay link, and you'll be able to watch this training again and again over the next 7 days for free. If you would like lifetime access to all of the LifeWave trainings, in addition to some of the other trainings that we do in the future, you might want to consider becoming an Access annual member of the Patch Training team. So people that are obviously downline members of mine are kind of grandfathered in. They get free access if they're a gold and above member to access all the different trainings that we do, as well as some of the tools that we have in the members only section, cheat sheets, first aid scripts, training videos, audios, business training. We have a training course just for new distributors, so on and so forth. So for everyone else, there is a normally $249 annual access membership fee to access all that, including, and you get as well, I do regular wellness webinars online as well, and you get the discount code for those webinars and access to those for a lifetime as well. And those are ongoing. So you'll have a whole library of wellness trainings for you in addition to LifeWave trainings. And until November 13th, which is the last class for the product training series, I'm giving a discount. So it's going to be $197 for the first year. It's one-time discount. And so if you go to the sign up today button, you'll see that there's the members access button. If you click on it, I know it says $249, but if you click on it, you'll see in the shopping cart it is discounted to 197. So with that, you'll also be able to log into our secret Facebook group where you can ask patching questions whenever you want to any of our patching experts. And for the business folks, if you want, you'll also be added to our Wigio online group where you can ask business questions as well as get access to the business trainings specific to how to do network marketing and how to run your own business. So, so you kind of get those as well if you're interested. Okay, so so Judy says she would start off with IceWave. Yeah, I think that's a really good choice. So if we go back to our basic principles, IceWave is definitely one of the patches because she talks about her muscles and joints hurting, right? And she does complain about being tired all the time, so you might want to start on some energy enhancer patches. And you may not know this. Again, this case is taken from our advanced training course for practitioners. But the patches actually have been shown to improve organ function, specifically, well, all the patches actually, but especially the YH patches. So she does mention that she's worried about her organs being damaged from lupus. So in this case, given her concern, the YH patches would help to support organ function. So that's the other thing you could recommend based on the research that LifeWave has done. So we got energy enhancer patches, we got all of the YH possibility because she's concerned about her organs being damaged, and then we've got, of course, energy enhancer patches for the fatigue. How do you know which one to start first? You ask the patient or you ask the client, what's your most important symptom, right? If we were to get rid of one first, which one would you want to get rid of first? Don't assume it's going to be the pain or don't assume it's going to be the energy. Ask them. And that way you'll know which one to start first. And then, of course, like I mentioned, you can then, assuming they're doing well on whatever patch you put them on, then you can add the other patches no sooner than every 2 to 3 days. In her case, I might wait a whole week before adding the next one because, she's probably a pretty sick puppy. So Mike has a question about pain. I think it's a question, right, Mike? Yeah. So pain in the heels and her hands and fatigue in the hands as the day progresses. Yeah, that sounds like a good, sorry, I've got that tickle. A good case for using the whole body pain protocol from the IceWave training class we did the first day a few weeks ago. So you'd put a set of a set of IceWave on the bottom of the feet, right arm right, hand on left, or vice versa, whatever works. And then you put the second set. In this case, you put on the inside elbow first, see if that works. If that doesn't work, you may want to use some of the other points on the upper body in the double IceWave patching protocols in your product training handbook, also in your IceWave brochure for whole body pain. So you keep the ones on the bottom of the feet, and then you would switch around the upper body ones until you got one that worked well. Now, I'm assuming since she has pain in her hands, you might want to start with some of the IceWave points on the hand or near the hand, such as the lung 9 point or the triple burner 5 point. That might be a good one to start with. But the shoulder point, triple burner 15, is also pretty good too. So do you guys know what I'm talking about? The whole body pain protocol in your brochure, your IceWave brochure. Those protocols you probably should memorize. Okay, you don't have to memorize all the other fancy ones, but you should maybe memorize the clock protocol. Know that by heart, know it in your sleep. And then the whole body pain protocol, that would be good to know too. So I'm talking about the latter, the double patching protocol with the IceWave. So that's where I would start. And then, I'd also put an Eon behind your right ear if those 2 sets of patches don't work, Mike, because oftentimes these folks with chronic pain are not brain balanced. Let's see. I got another question here. How do you combine patches with a theta heart to support proper functioning of the heart. And maybe the heart valve not working and the person's feeling weakness, faint, pain in the area of the heart. Any triangle patch is useful in this case. Yeah, there may be. Of course, you know, someone with serious heart problems, you want to make sure they are being, you know, seen and supported by a healthcare provider if you're not a healthcare provider. So if they're having these symptoms, make sure that you get their doctor's blessing before you start instituting anything that the doctor might be considering dangerous, even though it's not. So, of course, if it's you, that's helpful because, you know, you can do whatever you want with or without your doctor's blessing. So that being said, I'll tell you some of the points that we use to support heart function in acupuncture. I always like the Aeon patch for stress, so I'll always put one on the brain balance point. And then the energy patches I would put on pericardium 6, which is on the inside wrist. It's also in your brochure. Pericardium 6 on the inside wrist, 3 finger widths above the wrist crease, wide on right, tan on left. So that really helps support heart. And you can actually put another patch right over the heart. And in this case, if you have a couple choices. You can put an Aeon there if you don't put the one behind the right ear, or you can put the carnosine there. Carnosine helps to heal, right? Now, it's probably not going to grow them back a new valve, but it may be supportive of muscle growth and some other repair. So it's not going to do any harm and probably would do some good putting carnosine in the middle of the chest. So I try that. Nice triangle there. See that? And then if you do an Aeon on behind the right ear, you got 2 triangles, one on the heart, one on the head. Hopefully that makes sense, right? The double triangle. Yes, Mike, our patches don't treat any disease. We help support the symptoms. In fact, the only thing that really reverses disease is your own body. Your body is what heals itself. And we're just trying to give the supportive energy when we can talk about patches anyway. When we talk about Theta nutrition, it's giving the supportive nutrition to help the body heal itself. So it's really important that we say these things, that the body heals itself, not the patches. When people ask about acupuncture healing, I say, well, you know, the acupuncture just helps your body get on the right track to heal itself. All right, another question. So can we do combining patches for someone with poorly functioning pancreas? Okay. Can we combine it with Core Essentials? Well, we'll talk about Core Essentials next week. But Core Essentials is good for the immune system. And the Theta Heart that you mentioned earlier is really good for magnesium. I've gotten to my limit of talking today. So if you use Core Essentials, you have the Aeon patches and the Theta. That's always going to be helpful for most people with any chronic issues because it helps with the immune system, but does not help specifically for diabetes or insulin issues. Like we said, we're not treating diseases here. I think we mentioned one of the other classes about pancreas function, that you could actually put a patch on the pancreas. You can put maybe the carnosine patch or the Aeon or the glutathione right on the pancreas area, which would be around CV12, so halfway between the belly button and the xiphoid bone. And then the energy enhancer should go on spleen 6 point. Now, given that the pancreas is a hormonal organ, Dr. Dennis likes a spleen 6 patch, the SP6 complete, and the Aeon patch on spleen 6. So you could use that combination instead of energy enhancer patches on SP6. So anytime you're having pancreas related issues, you could try spleen 6. Use any negative and any positive patch on the left and the right, respectively, on spleen 6 point, and then you can make a triangle right over the pancreas. That makes sense? It's actually a beautiful combination. So Mike mentioned IceWave and Eon glutathione. Yeah, you could use IceWave if you'd like, using the 2 points of the triangle, and then you can use either an Eon or the glutathione right on the pancreas. And you guys all know that there's a Core Essentials. If you're buying 2, it's at $20 off. So instead of $179.95, which is already $40 off compared to buying all the components individually, they have a special going on. So if you buy 2 of them, they're at $159.95 for Core Essentials. If you buy 3, it's only $149.95. So really great savings, for the next few days. So you want to make sure that you take advantage of that and get some Core Essentials stocked up, because they don't always have specials. So can't guarantee there's going to be other specials anytime soon. So next week we're going to be doing Theta Nutrition, and we're going to go through some basics on how each of those work, and what kinds of folks might benefit from that. And after that, we're going to be doing the AccuLife patching animals. This is going to be a webinar done by one of the veterinarian acupuncturists who's on my downline, Lydia Wainwright. So if you do have pets, you may want to sign up for that class as well. And each week you'll get an email. If you're on my patch training team email list, you'll get an email with the sign up link. But if you want to sign up right now, you can go to our Facebook page, Patch Training Team Facebook page. Click on events and you'll see the dates for all the events. The next class is Thursday. So go ahead and register for all the events, and that way you'll know, even if you can't be there live, you'll get the replay available for 7 days after. Marcella, we can't answer that question because that is a disease name. And I'm not aware of any patches being shown to reduce cholesterol. However, high cholesterol is not a problem. It's just a symptom. It's actually not the main problem. The main problem causing high cholesterol is inflammation. And I think you already know which patch helps with inflammation. So that may be a way of supporting healthy cholesterol levels is through decreasing inflammation. And in that case, I don't think it really matters where you put the Eon patch when you're trying to decrease inflammation. I'm not really sure if you put them on the arteries of the neck, whether that would be better than putting them at any main acupuncture point close to that. But it's something worth trying. I probably would try. But keep in mind that if you've got so-called thickening of the arteries, they're calling it high cholesterol causing it, but it's really inflammation causing it. If that's already in the neck arteries, it's everywhere else as well. They may not test it everywhere else, but believe me, it's a systemic problem, not a local problem. So I don't really think it matters where you put the patch. But if you really think, wow, this artery is really blocked or something on the one side, you could put the Eon patch as close to that blockage as possible to decrease inflammation locally. So you could try that. Okay, what about people hearing, not hearing very well? Which patches might support vision? And what effective combination patches for weight loss? Well, we haven't found a patch combination for weight loss. However, we have several patches that support a healthy weight, given knowledge of how weight gain occurs. That's actually a whole hour of training, actually. So we won't be able to go in detail through that today. but we can in the future if you'd like. You know, the SP6 helps with appetite, right? So we gave you some protocols last class on how you can use that in combination. Hang on, let me get a drink. Hearing issues, more complex. It may be related to low kidney function. So it may be helpful to patch kidney 3. But sometimes it's not a kidney issue. Sometimes it's like kidney issue could be a nerve issue. Sometimes it's a bony issue. So that probably is a good question for Dr. Dennis to ask on our radio show. So if you don't know, we're doing a radio show, not this Monday, but the one after on November 3rd. So if you like Dr. Dennis's view on this, he's kind of the expert in Chinese medicine, even though I'm the one that's Chinese. So you can go to our Patch Training Team page on Facebook, or you can go to patchtrainingteam.com, click on the LifeWave Radio page, and scroll down and put in the comments your question. So we'll know where it is when we ask him on Monday. So I won't forget, basically. Ask your question there about how to support good hearing. Vision, it's either kidney or liver issue. So I think what we'll do is this November, we're going to work on immune system for our show. But in December, I think what we'll do is we'll do sense organs. So we'll do specifically hearing and sight, and we'll give you some patch advanced. These are all advanced, of course, protocols for that. That's beyond what we can work on right now, because this is you know, kind of a basic training class. So the advanced protocols will take quite a bit to answer some of those. So we'll do a whole radio show on that. But remind me, so to put it on the radio LifeWave Radio page on patchtrainingteam.com, your questions. The way you've asked it here is fine. Just get rid of the disease names, okay, Marcella? Otherwise, we'll have to erase the question from the page. We can't have it posted on the World Wide Web with disease names on there. So you want to post it with, how do you support hearing and vision? What protocols? And that's good enough. And then we'll have Dr. Dennis answer those. Okay, so we're past time here. I think we'll go ahead and say bye for now. And I do appreciate all the questions. They were awesome. And let's see. Yep, got some great questions here. So you may want to go and ask the questions on the radio show page, and we will do as much as we can in answering those more complex questions on the radio show. Not this Monday, not tomorrow, but the Monday after that with Dr. Dennis. So just make sure you remember to post it as a comment, so it'll remind me what your questions are. And yeah, thanks so much for being on the call today, you guys. All right, we're gonna say bye. We're gonna make sure this recording, I'll be double checking. This recording should be available. You'll get an email in the next few hours on the replay. And next week, we'll do Theta Nutrition. And of course, if we get through all that and you guys still have some patching questions, we'll try to answer some of those questions then too. Okay, guys, thanks so much. Good night.